Alex Schemanske, the absolute mad lad, was able to pilot United Wings to a top 64 placement at the largest tournament of the year, the NAIC. Alex is a really accomplished player, winning the previous international championships. So clearly United Wings has something going for it to be a choice for the largest IC of the year, like I said. So let's break down what the Wings is all about. And really, it's a throwback to a Night March concept, where we are trying to get rid of our United Wings attacking Pokemon to increase the damage output overall. Murkrow, Wattrel, and Flamigo all share the same attack, United Wings, that does 20 for each of your Pokemon in the discard pile that has the United Wings attack. That means with all of our Wingmons in the discard pile, we can deal 240 damage. And we're able to do that because we have the Ditto with that sudden transformation ability, which can copy the attacks of your basic Pokemon in the discard pile, except for rule boxes. So if we attach a Darkness Energy to a Ditto, all 12 of our Wings are in the bin. Our maximum damage output in this deck is 240. Actually a pretty solid number for a single prize attacking deck. But it gets better because we have the Dark type coverage of Murkrow, which really helps out against Gardevoir and helps out against Mew VMAX. And we have the Lightning type coverage of Wattrel, which helps out against Lugia, Palkia V-Star if it's in Chien-Pao, and also, now that it's popped up from the NAIC, ironically, it can help you get through Inteleon VMAX in the Rapid Strike deck. Even though the Rapid Strike matchup still might be difficult for you, if you can try and get off the marks early and get some early bosses orders on their 3 prizes, maybe you get over the line. So yeah, the dual type coverage of Wattrel and Murkrow is just so strong that gives this deck a well-rounded nature into matchups. Really, the only dodge and weaves, I would say, are going to be Lost Zone decks because they have the utility of Sableye and Greninja, which can be so detrimental to you. I would also throw Giratina in that mix, and also I would say the Rapid Strike deck is also quite a bad one for you. The Duraludon matchups are also quite kind of tricky because we are reliant on our 4 Dark plus 4 double Turbo Energy, but at the very least we do have access to Klara plus Pal Pad to reload our Darkness Energies to attack more heavily with our Murkrow and Dittos in the matchup so that we don't have our damage completely removed by the Duraludon's ability. So yeah, that's really the main emphasis here. In order to get rid of our Wing Mons, we have the Squawkabilly EX with that Squawk and Seize, allowing us turn 1 to discard our hand and draw 6. Obviously very helpful. The deck wants to see as many cards as possible, working towards Ultra Ball, Level Ball, Hisuians to get these out of the prize cards. That's the main priority of the deck, and Squawk is going to help us go with a deep dig early on and hopefully get rid of a ton of things. We, of course, then have the 3-3-1-1 Gallade line. You're typically seeing Kirlias alongside Gardevoir, but in this case, we're using Refinement to help us continue to get rid of our Wings, but also we have a now fighting type coverage with the Dynablade Gallade, which does 60 for each of your opponent's V Pokemon in play. Obviously, this is going to help out against Arc matchup, where we don't hit for helpful type coverage, so typically we're reliant on two-shotting Arc players, but with a Dynablade Blade play, especially with an Echoing Horn in the mix, you can reach one-hit KOs with Gallade against them, which is going to be really helpful for prize racing. And we also have the Buddy Catch Gallade, allowing us to search for a supporter and put it directly into our hand. This is obviously excellent. You can see we have 5 different supporters in the deck list, a lot of thin counts going on here, plus the Pal Pad. So having late-game Refinement and Buddy Catch to help us get out of Ionos and Roxannes, that sort of thing, we can still get over the line thanks to our engine mons that we have in the back. That's the main concept here. Quick note on the Flamigo, it doesn't have good type coverage, but it does come with the Insta-Flock ability, that when you bench the Flamigo, you're able to search your deck for 3 more and put them directly into the hand. That's already helps us ramp to get the early Squawk and Seize or the early research and get 3 immediately into the bin to get us to 60 damage output, which doesn't sound like a lot, and honestly it's not a huge amount, but you can then try and find the rest of your level balls, the rest of your Wings, the rest of your Ultra Balls kind of naturally, and it starts ramping up. So the deck is a little bit clunky at times, I would say, but has a ton of reasons to like it. And as a one-prize deck, in comparison to Lost Zone, it's going to complete its games much, much more quickly. It's much more reliant on trying to hit big damage, especially with those type coverages, and actually closes out the matchups. And I think Alex said part of the reason why he wanted to play this archetype in NAIC was if he was able to dodge Lost Zone decks for the opening 2 or 3 rounds, he was hoping that by not tying those rounds, he wouldn't be on a record where many other Lost Zone players will find themselves, because Lost Zone is such a naturally slow deck, and in a best of 3 50-minute situation, you don't want to be tying, and the Lost Zone decks often do find themselves tying. If they're not, out and out winning, they will oftentimes not finish 3 games. That's just the nature of the archetype. Too many decisions, too many shuffles, that sort of thing. That's just how the Lost Zone deck works. So if you are looking to play a deck that completes games, and we're heading into worlds where ties really are terrible, this might be the pick for you. So enjoy the games, and see you tomorrow for another video. Cheers. If you're looking for PTCG live codes, make sure you check out the Potown store. You can get a 5% discount on your orders using that code OmniPoke. So here we are in our first game. We get to begin, which is awesome. We have a Ralts start. Not too much else going on, but we do at least have a Flamigo for the flock that we can pull out of the deck early to improve our draws, hopefully. We also get a Mulligan, which helps out. Actually, really helps out. We get the Ultra Ball now. That's going to help us get towards Squawk. And we see Radiant Alakazam. Definitely a scary card. Definitely something we have to respect. Could be some Arc decks. Worst case scenario, it's a Rapid Strike deck. We have prized a Flamigo, but we can live with that. We play double Hisuian, so we can pull these out the deck at a different point in time. And we are going to have to squawk away a few of our Kirlia line. And as soon as I see the Alakazam, I'm preparing for the worst and wanting to put the Manaphy down. Also, just getting the extra bench Pokemon means that if I do eventually draw into second Collapsed Stadium, I have a wider board immediately. This deck isn't really too worried about how wide it goes on the board. Really, you try and get maybe 2 Kirlias down in most instances. That's the best case scenario. So you're pretty free to put Manaphy down. The opponent starts with VIP, and it is exactly what we feared, the Rapid Strike deck. They can Hisuian for Remoraid as well, which is definitely scary for us. Let's see what else they can construct here. They've at least done mission 1, but no other actions, which is really good for us. So yeah. So maybe they're not sat on the best of hands. Maybe only one, like it only takes 1 Octillery to unlock their potential, to be honest with you. But we are going to get a big research in here. Don't hit any Rescue Carriers, which is a shame. If we had Rescue Carrier, it would really unlock this hand to get more value with our hand. We've drawn into a ton of our wing mons, but just can't discard them just yet. So we are going to have to hit the Alakazam for just 60, which isn't ideal. In the best case scenario, we had a Murkrow available, and that hits for weakness, but even then we wouldn't have reached. Actually, we would have, because reduction of double turbo. The opponent does have Ultra Ball Octillery, though, so their hand is going to open up a little bit. At the very least, they can Karina here for a few cards, I would imagine. Unless they want to go cherry picking. Yep, it is going to be a 3-card. Actually, no, they do have a Rapid Strike energy. Must have been a top deck, I'd imagine. And we see another Ultra Ball. Gets rid of backup Remoraid and Tower. Alakazam is actually one of the worst leads in the deck for them. This is one of our only saving graces, because otherwise they could just use the Tower for free retreat to start swinging here with their Intel. But they are just going to double gun it and pass into us after spooning to the Manaphy, which is, again, really good news. Especially just clearing off this Alakazam is going to be huge for us here. We do have Wattrel, which can hit for weakness onto Intel, so that's something we have to keep track of and bear in mind. But, of course, we do have Rescue Carriers to recover these, of course. Definitely some argument to wanting to Pal Pad proactively here. Do choose not to and just take the swing. But maybe some argument there for going for Boss plus Serena back into the deck at this stage. A little bit worried about some potential Yoga Loop plays that are available now, because there is a 30 hit point remaining Manaphy, so they could double gun plus Yoga Loop and then take out multiple threats with the Urshifu, which would be very scary. We see the next Intel come down. Doesn't look like they're having the optimal draws here. We will see a Rapid Strike search. Even just banking a turn attachment onto Urshifu would be pretty strong here. They're going to go for VMAX instead. Then just swing and knock out the active. Pretty much best case scenario for us. We'll have to check how many Wingmons are in the bin. 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. And we still have a Wattrel in the deck, right? Oh, Rescue Carrier, that's interesting. Yeah, so with Wattrel, Thanks to our lightning weakness, we can be swinging into this VMAX, which is huge for us here. It will take us down to just 2 prize cards remaining, which is massive. We probably want to, thin a few more pieces here along the way. I have the option to collapse now as well. Collapse is super interesting. I can either collapse my Manaphy and basically give up the Yoga Loop play from the opponent, or I could collapse Squawk. Both very good options here, honestly. And this was the thing I was debating most during this turn. Because if I just take away the Yoga Loop, they can Urshifu away, maybe like both my attackers or Kirlia plus Ralts. But I would still have bounce backs in both regards. So in the end, I choose to hold the collapse. I feel like I probably should have played it to at least get rid of the Squawk. But I am assuming that I'll get Yoga Loop this turn. And turns out it's going to come in the form of a Klara from the Luminion, getting back those Water Energy and the VMAX. I don't really see a reason why I didn't collapse there, honestly. It seems like a pretty obvious play. The opponent also gets back the Alakazam, so they can save 1 damage counter from this Manaphy. But first we're seeing the Artillery Search. Echoing Horn. That's pretty okay. Not worried about that too much. So we're going to see the Yoga Loop. The opponent still has 4 prize cards to take, so even with some Spoon and Gunner shenanigans taking out Squawk plus something else, I don't just lose on the spot, so they really need to hand disrupt us here. That's the main piece of their puzzle. And if they hand disrupt, they're not using Rapid Flow either, actually. So they probably need to choose to Iono and then just hit us with the Urshifu and just Gale Thrust. That's probably their best defensive play available. We will see the Rapid Strike Search for Urshi. Oh, sorry, for Rapid Strike Energy for the Urshi. Going to see a Painful Spoon onto Kirlia. See Echoing Horn, that's fine. Doesn't change the fact that we'll be in range for this Luminion. And the opponent doesn't have any hand disruption, so we get a bit of a break there, actually. We only had 1 Kirlia developed, didn't have Gallade developed at the time. I, for some reason, was holding on to this Pal Pad for like way too long, so a little bit fortunate to not get punished there. It's a matchup that we do struggle against, but if I can eventually find the United Wings attack, we will get over the line in this one, which is cool to see. And Wattrel, turns out the Lightning weakness is an even better one to cover now that the Rapid Strike deck is in the mix. We'll get on to our next game here. Our hand is, again, pretty weak, actually. Gonna need the help from some top decks if we're going to get anything done here. We're up against a Lost Box, which is the thing you want to be dodging here. Let me tell you, I played a lot of Wings over the last 2 days, and I faced an unholy amount of Lost Box decks. I just seemed to be in that area of the ladder where everyone was playing Lost Zone, and every time I queued into Wings, it was just always into Lost Zone decks or Tinas. And let me tell you, the matchup ain't fun. It ain't fun at all. The opponent's getting going here. They can conceal and they've double selected, so pretty much everything they want to do. On turn 1, we pick up the Research, which is exactly what we need to actually get into this game. I'm just going to try and get to 4 Wings in the discard pile, ideally. And we're going to do much better than that because I can Insta-Flock now and Ultra Ball for Squawk. So then it's just going to be looking to find either Double Turbo or Darkness Energy, which is great. We find even more Ball Search, so I can start developing Ralts and Manaphy. This is the kind of start you need to have if ever you're going to challenge Lost Zone players. We then find a Darkness Energy. We have plenty in the discard pile. I'm also just going to prioritize getting additional Ralts down. And yeah, incredible turn for us. Getting 8 Pokemon in our discard pile with United Wings. That's an insane start. That would be enough to just insta-win against a number of our good matchups, I would say. Like, if you did that against a Mew player, you're just instantly winning, I think. Turns out we're against Lost Box, though, so the lightning hot start doesn't mean we necessarily win this game, especially with the Colress getting rid of double VIP pass. That's the dream. The opponent's now at 5 in the zone, so they can at least swing with Cram, I would imagine. Gonna see the concealed cards. And let's see what else they can construct here. Have to imagine it's just a spit innocently this turn. If nothing else, they might have some other shenanigans up their sleeve. The priorities for us at this stage is evolve up our Kirlias and ideally all the way to Gallades to deny Lost Mine easy value. We obviously want to get the Squawk out the way as well because they can have boss plays with Raikou or Dragonite. So those are kind of our priorities, as well as just the obvious keep finding that energy turn by turn. We pick up the Horn, but there's no easy value there for us, unfortunately. And we get into a ton of our energy cards. We don't actually have any backup wings just yet, which is a bit worrying. We find the Hisuian, which gets us Ditto, which is actually massive there. You can see we had a ton of, all of our prizes are Ball Search cards. Pretty disgusting, but we are able to respond on the Cram at least. So the opponent currently at 5 in the zone, if I remember correctly. Gallade is going to be helpful for next turn, I think. As well. We do see the Colress, so that gets them to 7. We are defending ourselves against Greninja at least. Right now. So it's whether or not they can recycle Cram, or if they can get all the way to 10 with some vacuums and such. These are the things we have to be a little bit concerned about. I see Comfey, Nest Ball. Definitely like them taking their time. Okay, another Sableye, so maybe they're confident they can get all the way to 10. Haven't checked the Lost Zone for a little bit. I think they're just at 8, right, so far, with the selecting plus Colress this turn. I'll have to double check. Hopefully I do that in a moment. The gates are open, though. We're going to see the Sableye into the rope. And they're going into their next Comfey. We're literally forced into the Ditto from the rope here. You never want to give them the easy 1 retreat cost stuff, because they could then Sableye down my Flamigo, and I'd be forced to find a Switch, which currently isn't in hand, so... We're going to see a concealed card, so they're really digging here. I think they've already got rid of one of their Forest stones. See a Pokestop now as well. Finds Rod and Switch Cart. Yeah, they're at 9 in the Lost Zone, so they're just shy of the Sableye play. Which could be our window here. We will see that Rod. So possibly they can still reload Cram here. It's great that live doesn't show you what gets shuffled back in. That's a great feature. We see a Vacuum. That's going to actually get them to 11, so it is just going to be the Sableye eventually coming into the mix. And this is where we start going a little downhill, let's be honest. They can start targeting Kirlias, stopping us drawing cards. They can target Manaphy, forcing us to find our Klara or Carrier. And things get a little scary, that's for sure. We see 8 onto Kirlia. And looks like it's going to be 4 onto the Ralts there. So the good news is they didn't threaten the Manaphy, so I at least don't have to worry about finding recovery this turn. I'm going to refine away the boss, doesn't seem that valuable. We find Klara and Collapsed, which is interesting. Could be an opportunity for me to either collapse away Kirlia or collapse away the Squawk. Once again, just having damage on your stuff. Always intriguing. Looks like I'm just holding off all options here, just keeping it open for a future turn. And we're just going to take the 1 prize. Definitely some value in maybe going Klara Collapse there. Even if I just get a Ralts and Kirlia back and then collapse away the Kirlia that's damaged, it makes it more difficult for our opponent to just go Sableye for 2 prizes this turn and get ahead of us in the race. But I'd still then just have a Squawk lying around for them to boss later. So, as it happens, we see an Echoing Horn, where things get even worse for us. A 60 hit point Mon is definitely not what you want to see. Greninja getting charged up in the back whilst the Sableye does the heavy lifting for now by the looks of things. And this is probably that pivotal turn where they just get ahead of us. And we don't have much of a way of catching up. Unfortunately, it just is what it is. Seen energy onto the bench, Comfey. So yeah, like I said, I could have gone for the Klara play and make it a little bit more difficult this turn, but all it requires then is the opponent to Lost Mine down the Manaphy, and there's still Greninja open anyway. That's the reason why I was holding on to the Klara, right? If I spend the Klara now, or sorry, last turn, the Manaphy then can't be recovered, and I'd just be done by the Greninja on the following turn. So I was keeping my options open to recover the Manaphy. That was the main logic. But I think just because the Sableye, and then we top deck Carrier straight afterwards, so maybe I should have just tried to be a little bit more forceful there with my Klara play last turn. Maybe that was the only thing I could have done in this game to stay ahead of the game. Looks like now I'm going to try and go for the collapsed play. We get back Flamigos, as these are the highest hit point mons we have. I think I'm going to just get rid of the Squawk here, so I don't just lose the boss. And our issue is our damage output, getting back both these Flamigos, is actually quite poor. We're just doing 80. So, again, like, I'm trying to make the most difficult board state for the opponent where they can't just troll us immediately. We recovered the Manaphy. We don't have 2 Pokemon that can be sabled in a turn at least. But all the opponent needs to do is present 2 attackers against us. The Greninja isn't live currently unless he uses it this turn just to hit 70 into the Ditto. But as soon as I see another Sableye plus a Cram or something like that, we have no Pokemon that have high enough hit points to close out the game. So all we need to do is represent 2 attackers now, and we can't win anymore. And unfortunately, that is just Lost Zone. They don't need much to keep up with you. Sure, they need to get 4 in the Lost Zone fairly quickly, but they have the catch-up mechanics of Greninja being threatening the entire game. They even have Echoing Horn in this list. They have potential like Raikou into Squawk, especially early game. That can be really painful to you because you may not be all the way at 10 wings in the discard pile at the time they go for a Raikou play. So it is just a very bad matchup. I wanted to show this off because this is the main downside of wings, right? You're really happy to see the Mews, the Lugias. You're really happy to see basically decks that just hit you back in the face, whereas the Lost Zone Turbo list, the Kyogres, the Tinas, to an extent, even though we've beaten one, a Rapid Strike deck is definitely not something you want to face because you're littering your board with low hit point single prizes. And Yoga Loop is just so dirty against us. So these are things to bear in mind. You're definitely this dodge and weave deck, as I may have said earlier on. And at this point, they've developed Sableye, they've developed Cram. They're thinning their hand down so that they just have no jank remaining, so they can't just get hand disrupted out of the game. Not that we play any. And yeah, we're just going to be toast here. No matter which way you slice it. They can just go Cram hits quite happily here. And we're done. So yeah, that's really just a little showcase about how things can go down against Lost Box. There may have been opportunities for us to squeak things there. Maybe I should have played the Klara Collapsed and got rid of the damaged Ralts on that turn and then just played towards top decking, research Zinnia or Carrier. I think it would have been like a 33% or something. That's something I look back on for sure. I thought it was an interesting enough game, though, where we didn't get completely blown up by the Lost Zone deck. They just, like, squeaked ahead of us towards the latter stages. But that's all it really takes. And then we have another matchup against Lost Box. And straight away, the complexion of the game is different, because already there's a 2-prize Pokemon in play. Unfortunately, it's Dragonite has 230 hit points. But a 2-prizer nonetheless, so something to bear in mind for us here. The opponent is going to get selecting. Gets rid of their Raikou. Passes over to us. Our hand is stacked. We just top deck the Nest Ball. I think that's been the story of today. We've had really poor hands, and then every time we've top decked into the game, which is a bit worrying for the consistency of this deck for sure. Seeing as though we are walking that tightrope, but hey, we're getting there. I go for the early Murkrow energy attachment, just to develop that. And we actually get really, really nice hand off the Squawk, where I can flock the boys out and then just research them away, plus Murkrow. So we get the wings for 80 immediately, which is awesome. I can even thin more out here with the heavy ball. Hand's actually pretty okay for next turn. We have energy for our Flamigo attack if we do get response knocked out. And we have level ball for at least 8 Kirlia. And then even the Zinnia off the prizes. So we've put the pressure on. That's what we're hoping for here. We're seeing the flower selecting from our opponent. This gets them to 3. And if they don't find Colress, we might find a gap. We might find an opportunity. That's what we've really got to hope for here. And it's energy to Dragonite Pass. So, yes, this is a showcase where we're going to have one up on this Lost Box. And honestly, this is kind of what it takes, right? You need them to lead. Ideally, they lead Raikou or Drapion, right? Because those are V Pokemon that you can knock out in one hit cleanly. The Dragonite's actually out of range of the wings unless you go all wings plus Ditto at the very late game. But if they just don't find Colress in the opening stages, which, as we know, certainly can happen for Lost Zone decks, then you do just get this gap. And at this point, especially with the Collapsed available to me, I don't see how they even catch up on a race with a completely undamaged board and the option for me to collapse away some damaged stuff. We're actually just in a really good ascending position now. I can even start evolving these Kirlias out of low hit point range. And yeah, at that stage, they're just in all heaps of trouble, basically. So definitely a fortuitous game, but I just want to show this off because although I definitely lost the majority of games I played against the Lost Zone decks, I was able to pick up more than one win, actually, a couple wins against the Lost Zone players. Like I said, you do have to have a little slice of luck, and I would definitely expect going into the series that you would lose against them. But as you can see, I'm just going to discard the damaged Flamigo. That puts them in an even worse position where they don't even have a means of mopping up this damage later. We're just going to keep cycling. We're going to wings through the Dragonite. And we are slowly churning through these prize cards, slowly getting there, which is really nice. The opponent just, essentially, after we had the aggro Comfey knockouts, they just couldn't get to 4 in time. They couldn't get the cram online. And they just whiffed Colress for a couple turns, essentially. And that's put us in good stead. The Drapion actually does come down now. They've already played the rock, so I'm not really sure what they can be grabbing. Yeah, they're just going to scratch. This is getting rough. Maybe they even prized their cram. I imagine they play one copy of their turbo. This stage we can grab our Gallade. And I might be able to close the game here with enough wings in the bin. Yeah, looks like we're going for the boss play, so we can get over the line with good old Murkrow. So a funny game against Turbo. Obviously they drew terribly. And that's what you really need to win that matchup, because I've shown you what happens in a conventional sense in the first game against Lost Zone, and I showed you basically that if you can high roll and they low roll, you still got a chance. So bring on the wings for Worlds. We have another game here. We're going second into Arc. Definitely one of the tougher matchups. We do have the Fighting Gallade that we have to bear in mind. And once again, we're doing nice on these top decks, getting our Flamigo off the top. One prized, unfortunately. But you can see we do have our Gallade line. I think I have Ultra Ball in hand as well, so I can get a Squawk here quite happily. We're just going to get to work on trying to get this Wattrel as beefy as possible in the active position. As we can research away first. Not much help from this hand. Actually, yeah, it's pretty good. We have the double turbo. We can get a Ralts developed if we want to, or we could just get another Wingsmon in the bin, because I have multiple Ditto now. Yeah, and we are just going to go for as much damage as possible with the Wattrel. The hope is that we get close enough with our early United Wings that I can try and two-shot this guy. That's what we're really hoping for. If you can two-shot the Arc, you're in really good shape. It's if you have to three-shot it where things get dicey. 100 damage is kind of okay, but it's asking a lot for us next turn. We're hoping that this Wattrel gets knocked out. That makes it 120. 140 if we attack with Ditto. So we would need to get 2 more Wingsmons in the bin, assuming that Wattrel gets knocked out here. And the opponent's getting powered up now. They have their V-Star, they have the barrel. So you have to assume that they're taking out the Wattrel here. some argument for them to go for the Squawk, actually, just because it's prizes that's immediately on the board for them, and it stops me having an extra Wingsmon in the bin. But if we're able to two-shot through this arc, we have a really decent prize map, actually, of just being an attack ahead into multi-prizes. If we have to three-shot the arc, that's where things get really bad. So our luck is really condensed this game to what is going to happen turn 2 for us here. Because our turn 1 was exceptional. We did 100 damage, got a decent chunk of wings in the bin. This will be our 7th wing in the bin. We're going to go with the Flamigo. So Flamigo is a little weird, right? We have the double turbo, so you can see why, but attaching double turbo actually makes me have an extra wingmon to swing with here. I'm going to keep the horn, which is possibly a greedy choice. But it's because I want Gallade to be online for later for one-hit KOs on their follow-up arc. So that's why we keep the horn around. It's a little bit ambitious, I'm not going to lie, but we were quite far away from the knockout anyway. When I'm Serena getting rid of no wingmons, we're really hoping to draw a ball search there or a wing itself. If we do that, we're actually in decent shape to finish off this arc. But unfortunately, no dice. The opponent's playing a bit of a strange list with Giacomo in here. Maybe that's for Mew or something. Or also possibly helpful against Lugia to an extent, resource-wise. But regardless, they can just punch through us once again. And power up more boys in the back. And they're just doing the classic thing now of being too big for us to deal with, basically. We have to try and weave in a Gallade hit. I think this is where I make a big mistake. I attach a double turbo, thinking that I want to keep Darkness Energies around if I can get boss plays and hit 220 cleanly. But I probably should have held this double turbo to give myself the option to Gallade, actually. Because I was already holding onto the horn, right? So I probably should have kept that line open. As it happens, we do get Ionoed into a fresh 4. We do actually draw into the Gallade, but we've played a lot of our double turbos. Our very first attack was Wattrel, then we had Flamigo, and now Ditto spent double turbo. So it's actually not likely that we get this Gallade attack in, which is really rough. We're going to go Ditto here. And straight away, we top deck the Zinnias, which basically changes what I would have wanted to do. I probably would have gone Gallade if I had a supporter in my hand, to even just have the high roll of drawing into double turbo. But now we probably just have to give up on it. We draw Research, we draw Klara. We've already had to get rid of 2 Switch cards because of our turn 1 Squawk. So just not ideal, ultimately. We're going to reload some Gust now that we're 2-shotting this guy. But the opponent is 3 attacks away and we're 4 attacks away. The only way we could try and clean this up is if we try and 2-shot the Arc and then are able to Gust the other Arc with Fighting Gallade. It is asking for a lot, though, and if the opponent has Boss this turn, well, no Boss this turn, but I guess they could also Boss next turn if I can't collapse the Squawk. And I'm pretty sure we've already discarded 1 Collapsed. So that's what's going through my mind right now. If I can collapse Squawk, maybe we can still win this game, because I could use Fighting Gallade on benched Arc and cleanly knock it out if I have Echoing Horn. We're able to start refining here. Yep. I think that was a misorder, actually. I should have refined with the other Kirlia first, because now I don't want to refine and hit a piece that I need pre-research, right? So that's the issue here. Yeah, definitely refined the wrong guy, but not super punished with what we drew into, so that's okay. We are just going to research, and we don't draw into the Collapse. I don't think it's actually in the deck. I think the other one's prized, unfortunately, so the Squawk is just going to be a liability for us right now, which is a real shame. But we can go down to 2 prize cards, and we're trying to dodge Boss. The opponent hasn't developed Squovit, at least, so there's somewhat of a chance they don't have Boss's orders here. But no, they instantly do, so yeah. Not able to collapse away our Squawk from the early game, unfortunately. and that's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. I think you're okay against dark decks, but it does rely on getting that big swing turn with Gallade, and we just weren't able to pull it off in this one. So yeah, that's Wings. A few wins, few losses. That's kind of the deck, I think, in a nutshell. If you get those pop-offs, you're a fairly decent deck and very dangerous if you are hitting for those key weaknesses. But I do think it's living on a knife edge of consistency. You saw we were top decking ways to even just play the game in a number of those games. So let me know your thoughts down below. Will it actually show up for Worlds, or was it going to be that one-hit wonder from wacky Alex Schemanske? I'll hear it all down below. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you tomorrow for another video. Cheers.